Hello, beginner band. Today we are going to focus on playing low notes. So low notes is kind of really hard for me when I learn flute. I found that it's kind of difficult or need to put more effort on your low notes in order to get a resonant, loud, or kind of open sound to your low notes. What I did usually when I was learning flute, I usually kind of push the notes in order to get the resonant sound to the low notes, but that didn't really work. Usually when I play low notes, I was kind of did like a really fuzzy sound to it, and it was not the notes that I wanted. That was not the sound that I want to produce. But today I'm going to teach you guys two tricks about playing low notes. Um, so the first one is kind of blow air to your hand. When you blow air, you want to create when you play low notes. You want to create a warm air to it. For example, when you blow air, you want to do when you're kind of cold in winter, you kind of blow air to your hand in order to get it warm, right? You kind of open your embouchure, open your mouth to in order to get the warm air. So that's a warm air. So and then you kind of just blow with your small tongue. Use your mouth here to blow air like this. It's just cold, right? This is really warm. This is cold. So you want to play with that kind of warm air. You kind of want to open your embouchure, open your mouth here, open your throat. Everything is open in order to get the low resonant sound to it. For example, I will play F, really low F, the lowest F. So the first one is I play with warm air. And the second one, I would play with a high, like a small tone, small lip, and really kind of thin air. That doesn't work, right? So when you blow with your really cold air and small embouchure, you usually get it really fuzzy or kind of you couldn't really produce the sound or really quiet low notes. Uh, so when you play low notes, you want to play with warm air. Imagine you are kind of play with a open or want to warm your flute. It's a warm air. Okay, so the second thing I want to talk about is kind of like a trick, a little small trick that you can do as when you play your low notes. So instead of like blowing out your air, I when you think about blowing out the air, I want you to think about instead of blowing out, you would think about sucking in the air. So instead of you want to do like that, you want to kind of imagine you're sucking the air in. So that's the first thing. The first one is a wrong, wrong sample, wrong example for playing low notes. I just kind of think about blowing out the air. I don't think I would get a nice warm tone to my low notes. I usually just get like kind of sharp and sometimes instead of playing low notes, I get something like a middle register instead of low register. So you don't want that, right? So when I think about, oh, I want to suck in my air instead of, instead of blowing out the air. That's a sucking air effect for not, well, it's not like actually sucking in the air, but instead of like blowing out, you kind of create like an open aperture to your low notes. It's almost like you're doing that. Okay, so the third thing that I want to talk about is your flute position for your tone hole here. Usually, when we want to get the really low notes, we want to think more and we want to kind of like blow more air to your flute. So, you usually, what I did, I usually kind of roll in more instead of roll out. So when I roll in, I eventually cover almost the whole the this whole thing. You just want to cover halfway, right? You don't want to cover the whole thing. But when we make a really when we think a lot about low notes, we usually what I did, I used to kind of cover my whole tone notes, and I couldn't make any good sound to it. So for example, you want to stay like halfway. You don't want to go something like that. You want to just stay right here. And remember, be careful of rolling in. So when you want to roll in, think about roll out. So the first example that I'm going to show you is kind of roll in when I'm gonna want to bring every air in my flute, so I kind of roll in. That's not a good great sound. It's really flat and really fuzzy and really kind of I couldn't make any sound to it. You could only hear air, right? So when I kind of roll out, just stay in. It's just same as middle register, third register, high register. I just stay in the same position. I just stay in the same position. I never change my tone. I never changed the position of my flute. I never move my flute, right? So the example that I'm gonna show you, or you can practice with your low notes, with the position. It's page your in your band book, page 28 and excerpt 128 for flutes only. That's a great exercise for kind of stay in the same position. So I'm gonna play it for you. So first thing I would think about warm air. Second thing I would think about sucking in the air. Third thing I would think about stay in the same position. When you think about those three things, it's really quite easy to play loud, resonant, and kind of low, rich low notes. And yeah, I would do that for a couple times in order to get used to that 3 points. Okay, and the next thing we are going to do in order to kind of like do any exercise on the low notes when you kind of get used to the exercise we just played. I would do page 24 and exercise 102. And that's a kind of like a great exercise for kind of for fun and kind of for exercise for kind of practice your low notes as well. Okay, so let's see. 102 strictly business. So this one is, what key is it? B flat, E flat, A flat. What key is it? E flat major, right? Okay. So E flat major, but be careful of this one. There's a lot of A flat instead of A natural instead of A flat. There's a lot of yeah, that's it. That's it. It just one A natural and then switch to A flat. So be careful of that. And the time signature for this one is 3/4, and the dynamic for this one is forte. Let's try it. Let's set the metronome with, let's do just 60 because it's kind of like a starting point for your low notes. Yeah. And then when you kind of get used to the low notes and you're kind of confident with your low notes, you can always play faster. And let's do 103. 103 is a great exercise for your low notes as well. So let's see. This one, there's like a little square in front, and in front of the excerpt, it's E flat, E flat, and it's a low E flat. So let's see the fingering. Fingering, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, left hand 1, 2, 3, and with your thumb on, and right 1, 2, 3, and then with a little pinky right here. Let's do it. Remember that 3 points. 3 point. The first thing is playing warm air, right? Imagine you're playing with, you're kind of warming your hand, warming your flute. And the second thing is think about sucking in the air instead of blowing out. And the third thing is, what is that? Position, right? Just don't roll in. Just stay in the same position all the time. Let's do with metronome, and let's talk about this excerpt. Smooth sailing. So for this one, is 3 flats: B flat, E flat, and A flat. So there's 3 flat in it. What key is it in? E flat again, right? But there's a difference because I can see there's dynamic in it. So the first 4 measure are forte, and fifth and the last 4 measure is our piano. So which mean from kind of like a strong muscular man to a kind of like a quiet or really let's see, really quiet and really not as strong and kind of like a baby. Let's try it with metronome on, and let's do 60 as well. So 60, to get used to 60, and you can get faster once you kind of really confident about your low notes. play the dynamic here, forte, it's kind of different than the piano, but stay in the warm air. So for the forte, you kind of produce kind of blow out more warm air, and for the piano, you kind of more quiet. You want to be really delicate and really kind of smaller and smaller amount of warm air to your piano. Yeah, and let's do 104 as well. It's a great exercise for your low notes. Um, so for this one is the key signature. There's no key signature in it, but I could tell there's a lot of E flat, a lot of flats in it. E flat, A flat, B flat in it, right? So, and the dynamic here is forte. Forte switch back to piano and forte switch back to piano. And notice there's, be careful of the accent there. So when you play low notes on accent, you don't want to just blow out, like really strong blow out. You want to be kind of suck more air in it. Imagine suck more air in it and kind of produce more warm air to your notes. So let's play with metronome again, and let's go a little bit faster. For let's do 69. Yeah, and it's a great. It's kind of challenging for playing accent on low notes, but it's a great practice. So when you do accent, you want to use your tongue instead of your ear. Um, yeah, and for accent, for example, when you play just smooth, no accent, E flat, it's kind of like right? And when you play accent, you want to use your tongue to kind of tongue out the accent. And there is nothing really changed in my air. Still produce warm air and yeah, produce warm air in it. And that's it for today. And I hope you learn how to learn some trick about low notes. And I hope you enjoy this lesson. And I hope you guys get the really resonant, rich sound to your low notes. Good luck. Bye.